Yun, so good day everyone, no? So welcome back again to another video lesson, no? This is Beyond Technicals Level 1 Part 2. Basically, discussing essential fundamental analysis focused on micro level funda analysis. So in this video, in this lesson, objective natin is to learn and understand essential fundamental and valuation metrics, pati na rin yung mga use cases, no, of micro level funda in trading. So syempre, ang focus lang din naman natin is to incorporate funda analysis in our trading playbooks. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to, number one, appreciate the bearing of essential valuation metrics and micro-level funda in trading. Pangalawa, to identify and work with short-term and long-term catalysts on stocks. Tapos, matututunan nyo rin paano gumalaw around it. So, pangatlo, yung mga different cases on how to trade around catalyst. So, it's all about valuation, it's all about financial metrics and catalyst, and trading around catalyst. So, ito yung components, no, of micro-level funda analysis. So, first question, ano nga ba yung micro-level funda? Basically, it refers sa process of examining and evaluating the intrinsic value of individual stocks by analyzing financial statements, pati na rin yung mga qualitative factors, specifically dun sa company na yun. So the aim is to determine whether the current market price ng stock is actually representing the true value of the company or even the future value of the company. Thus informing of what the market participants might price in, yung mga institutions, pati na rin yung retail. So yung umbrella, under the umbrella of micro FA, is yung financial statement analysis. Basically, pag-analyze ng FS or mga earnings nila. Pangalawa, yung mga valuation metrics, mga ratios, financial ratios, etc. etc. Pangatlo, looking at a stock under its industry, kung saan nakalagay yung isang stock na yun. Nasa magandang industry ba siya? May industry momentum ba? Next is looking at individual stock by comparing them with their competition. No? So, competitive analysis. So, for example, NVIDIA versus AMD. No? Kunyari, sa Philippines, PLDT or TEL versus Converge versus Globe. So, yun yung mga pwede mong i-consider, no, under micro FA. Pangapat, government or regulatory analysis. Actually, na-discuss na natin yan in macro level FA. Uh, and lastly, corporate management analysis. So, hindi na natin masyadong papansinin tong corporate management analysis. Basically, na-discuss na rin natin siya in the macro level FA. So, yun, moving on. Markets are always pricing in the intrinsic value of a stock. Yun yung lagi nating tandaan. The markets is always pricing in yung current intrinsic value or pwede rin yung future intrinsic value na isang stock. That's why we need to have a decent level of understanding in funda analysis, no? Kasi majority of market participants are actually influenced by fundamental developments in a stock, whether micro man yan or macro. So for example, usually yung mga institutions, they are triggered to buy a stock if maganda yung earnings, if maganda yung financial standing ng company, siya yung leading company between or in an industry. Yun yung mga fundamental developments na pinapertain natin. So, ayun nga, markets are actually acts as a discounting mechanism. So, the market as a discounting mechanism means that financial markets, stocks man yan, bonds, commodities, or currencies, actually reflects all available information, no, in the prices of assets. So, for example, may new information, or anything, pinaprice in na yan. So, in equities, all information in the qualitative and quantitative sense is being priced in and discounted by the market in a look-forward manner to assess a stock's value. So, parang acting as a voting mechanism siya, no, in the short term. So, yung qualitative is yung story or narrative. Yung quantitative aspect is yung numbers, yung financial developments. So the key idea of the EMH or efficient market hypothesis is that if new relevant information arises, whether known to the public or unknown to the public, market prices adjust accordingly. Kaya siya napaprice in. So however, markets may not always perfectly absorb or reflect all information, which can present opportunities for investors. Paminsan may lag, paminsan may lead. So we need to incorporate technicals as always. So what are the two key factors that affect market participants? Market participants' sentiment and perceived value on a stock. So isa yun sa mga key questions, no. Ano yung dalawang key factors na nakakaapekto sa mga market participants sa sentiment nila dun sa perceived value on a stock? So ito yung mga factors na pwede mag-trigger sa kanila to aggressively buy a stock or aggressively sell a stock. So number one, yung story or narrative. So whether may growth story isang stock or value story, market participants easily gets hyped up by stories and narratives kasi madali siyang intindihan, madali siyang i-digest, no? So for example, right now DG Plus as of 2024 July gained around 6% in a day. So isa yan sa mga online gambling stocks in the Philippines, one of the leading online gambling stocks. So may story, may growth story siya na siya lang yung magiging parang somewhat mamamonopolize na yung online gambling segment in the Philippines. So dito naman sa example na to, actually is Dito, previously known as ISM, way back 2018. So Dito rallied or ISM rallied by around 169% in just a few days, in just a few weeks after NTC or National Telco Commission confirms Mislatel, known as ISM, currently Dito, as third telco. So, na-release yan bandang November 19, 2018. So, before the news was released, actually, nagko-consolidate pa lang yung stock. Then, afterward, after the news was released, nag-rally yung Dito. So, that's the story aspect. That's the story aspect. Pangalawang, numbers. Growth or value numbers. So, market participants gets triggered to buy a stock or to sell a stock if merong development in terms of their numbers, yung financial standing nila or whatever. Earnings, basically, no? May turnaround ba? May disappointment ba? Etc. etc. So, numbers actually provide comfort and stability on market participants' decision. Ulitin ko, numbers provide comfort and stability on market participants' decision as numbers are factual. So, kunyari, may earnings release yung company XYZ, nag-gain sila ng ganito. So, earnings beat or parang exceeded market's expectation. So, factual number siya na exceeding market expectation. Kaya, ang nangyari, which in turn, nagkaroon na aggressive buying on a stock. So, that's one example. So, dito naman, no, actually, yun din yung dinidiscuss ko. Coursera, one example right now. As of July 2024, nag-gap up siya. 50% gap up on earnings. Kasi nagkaroon ng earning surprise. So, despite being on a downtrend, yung stock na to, despite being on a downtrend, nung nag-release siya ng earnings and it exceeded market's expectation, market analyst expectation, so yung reported EPS niya is 0.09, estimated lang is 0.01. Tapos there is also a significant revenue growth from 170M, ang estimated lang is 164 million. So may EPS growth ka, meron kang revenue growth. So explain ko yung dalawang yan later on. Basically nagkaroon ng turnaround, no? And that granted confidence to the bulls to push prices higher, gapping up the stock by 50% and giving this significant volume spike by around 10.12. So 10.12 R vol. So yun yung dalawang key factors na nakakaapekto sa or nakaka-influence sa mga market participants to buy a stock aggressively or sell stocks aggressively. So combining both, no, yung story and numbers creates strong trends. So combining story and numbers creates strong trends. So great story backed by numbers can be potential market leaders or true market leaders, TML. So one great example of this is Nvidia. So, NVIDIA basically has a growth story, may number story, may numbers backed by numbers. So, story siya backed by numbers. So, we know that NVIDIA is one of the leading semiconductor stocks. Essential lang yung nagpo-provide ng AI chips or uh, kaya mag-support ng AI related programs or whatever using their chips. So, story is AI is a game changer nga in society. Starting pa lang nung bandang January 2023, doon na-release yung ChatGPT and then nagkaroon ng wide scale no in the usage of ChatGPT. So, ang speculation is that mag-grow yung Nvidia pati AI sector by around 20% per annum till 2040 no dahil dun sa AI demand. So yung numbers aspect naman, we can see that there is a significant acceleration in earnings and sales growth since the start of AI developments and real life use cases. So since the bottom of Nvidia, up yan ng around 800%. So nilagay na lang natin dito no, yung pag-breakout dito sa MA50. After the breakout, nag-gain siya ng around 700%, 686% in less than a year. No? So, backed by stories backed by numbers. Stories backed by numbers. So, Nvidia, we can see that EPS growth starting Q1 2023. So, we can zoom in. So, from Q1 2023, 0.11, 0.27. So, nag-grow yung EPS niya. So, yung metric na yan, explain ko na lang yan later. But, it's an earnings per share or a measure of earnings growth. Ito naman revenue. So we can analyze that and we can see that starting Q4 2022, actually Q1 2023, may significant revenue growth tayong nakita with Nvidia. So from meager 6 billion revenues, umabot siya ng 7.19 breaking out revenue all-time highs. Q2 2023, 13 billion. Q3 2023, 18 billion. So, nag-grow siya. It's even beating the estimated revenues no by analysts. So, stories backed by numbers. So, when stories and numbers align and materialize, it breeds strong confidence to market participants, giving birth to true market leaders. So, lagi natin tatandaan yan. So, if nag-align yung dalawang yan, tapos maganda pa yung technicals, dapat gatasan mo siya as much as possible. So, dito na tayo moving on, bridging the gap between stories and number. So, common misconception in funda analysis is we should only focus on numbers or the story alone. So, may mga tao kasing nakafocus lang sa story, di na nila titignan yung numbers. May mga tao din namang nakafocus lang sa story, nakafocus lang sa numbers. Then, wala na silang pakialam sa story. So sabi ni Aswath Damodaran, one of the godfathers no in valuation, godfathers in valuation. Sabi niya dito, a good valuation needs the numbers and narrative. The narrative guides the numbers and the narrative and the numbers discipline the narrative. Narrative guides the numbers and the numbers discipline the narrative. So may tamang balanse, So pag-focus ka lang sa numbers, pag-focus ka lang sa numbers, paminsan may mga makakaligtaan ka. So numbers-based valuation is basically a way to quantitatively assess a stock or value a stock based on their financial statements, earnings, etc. So, yung gantong klaseng valuation, ano yan favorite yan ng mga numbers people, ng mga tipong accountants, engineers, mga financial engineers, whatever, or something like that. So, dito na lang tayo, what stories do for a numbers valuation, no? So, gusto kasi natin ma-bridge yung gap Gusto natin ma-bridge yung gap. So, what stories do for numbers valuation? So, stories are better hooks, no? Direct to the point and memorable. So, kunyari, yun nga, like yung binigay natin example kanina, Dito Telecom, bags, the third telco chuchu. So, stories is easily digestible, madali siyang i-digest, madali din siyang hook. So it helps you to it serves as an anchor, no, for a numbers based valuation. Pangalawa, stories force consistency tests on numbers. So consistent ba yung story versus the numbers na pinapakita? So isa yun sa mga main na na pwede may contribute na isang story to a numbers valuation. Pangatlo, stories allow follow through in businesses. So, kunyari may growth story, tapos hindi naman nagma-materialize, then wala ring use, 'di ba? Kahit na yung numbers actually reflects the story. So, stories allow follow through in businesses. So, ito yung dangers of a pure numbers valuation. So, paminsan, prone siya to overfitting bias. You might play with numbers to change valuation. Pangalawa, you might fool yourself with false precision. Optimize ka na optimize. Hanap ka ng hanap ng numbers na related to perfect everything. So, tumatagal yung process. Wala ka nakukuhang actionable data, no? Pangatlo, you might deny your own bias, syempre. Lalong-lalo na yung mga numbers guy or numbers guys or yung mga numbers people, very prone sila to bias. Same with the stories people, no? So, kailangan may balance talaga. So, story-based valuation, no? Yan yung qualitative assessment on stocks. Kadalasan based on catalyst, based on speculative stories, etc. So, dito naman tayo sa what numbers can do to a story valuation. Number one, numbers give stories credibility. So, kunyari may growth story like yung sa Nvidia, di ba? May AI catalyst growth story pero kunyari yung Nvidia wala siyang pinapakitang earnings growth, wala siyang pinapakitang sales growth. Hindi siya credible growth story. Hindi siya credible catalyst, hindi siya credible story. So that's point number one. Point number two, numbers allow for plausibility checks. So plausible ba yung story? Is it possible? Is it plausible? So, importante na tinitingnan din natin yung numbers if plausible ba, pati na rin possible yung nade-develop na story on a stock. Pangatlo, numbers create accountability in businesses. So, just like yung example natin kanina sa Nvidia, if hindi naman nag-reflect sa numbers, then wala ring point. So, ito naman, dangers of a pure story or narrative-based valuation. Number one, fairy tale bias. So, you might be creating a fantasy or fairy tale story overstretching possibilities. So, one example, kunwari, Tesla, magkaka-robo-taxi siya. So, kunyari, magkaroon ka ng fairy tale bias na tipong mawawala lahat ng cars or di nakakailangan ng mga tao ng driver or whatever or ng taxi, ng Uber. So, pwede mong gawin dyan is ikasama yung valuation ni Uber kay Tesla, ipasok mo dyan and then mag-overvalue ka. So, mag-overstretch ka sa mga possibilities. So, pangalawa, you might only be guided by anecdotal evidence. So, it's an evidence issue. Pwedeng hindi siya credible and solid evidence. Parang ganun. And pangatlo, you're prone to unconstrained biases. So, lahat naman yan prone to biases. Lalong-lalo na yung mga funda-based na tao or funda-only na tao. So, our goal here is to at least have a decent enough understanding on proper valuation techniques or at least yung framework na to aid us in building conviction on emerging technical setups. So kaya rin nating hinuli yung mga fundamental analysis na lessons natin. Kasi paminsan malakas yung bias with funda no. Dito sa funda analysis ang goal lang natin is to use funda to build conviction lang on the technical setups. Okay. So one of the key considerations in valuation or micro level funda is a company's life cycle. So tapos na tayo i-discuss yung yung numbers based valuation pati yung story based valuation. Dito na tayo sa company's lifestyle tuloy. So a stock should act their age for it to be attractive for investors, traders, and institutions. So lahat ng corporation, lahat ng companies, kumakasa yan sa isang life cycle, no? Sa isang life cycle. So most companies undergo this complete life cycle, and actually great companies act their age. So mature companies shouldn't act like young growth companies, else they may crash and burn, no? As investors and traders, we want to ride each corporate life cycle, as each transition provides potential opportunities. So we can categorize them to startup, young growth companies, high growth companies, mature growth companies, mature na stable, and then mga declining companies. So basically, no, startups, yan yung mga initial phase with a focus on developing a business concept and attracting customers. So one example, kunwari AI related names and others, no? So may idea sila for business na kayang ma-meet or tingin nilang ma-meet yung isang need sa market. So young growth companies, a great example for this is Tesla and Uber. So creates a business model that converts ideas into revenue. So yan yung mga companies na kumikita na, tumataas na yung revenues, tumataas na yung earnings, and meron na silang nakuhang niche market, no? So ito yung mga high growth companies, no? One great example of this, Netflix and Nvidia. So increasing revenue, increasing earnings. So high growth companies, and they are scaling to profitability. So rapid expansion, increased sales, and scaling. So ito sa life cycle ng isang company, na isang stock. Dito na siya sa mature growth. So one example of this is Facebook and Google, no? Parang nag-grow pa rin yung earnings nila, nag-grow pa rin yung revenues nila. Pero hindi na tulad ng dati na tipong nandun sila sa high growth stage nila. So mature growth companies, slower growth, they can maintain their market share, and at this point they are generating consistent profits na. So ayun nga, one example of this is Facebook. So ito, next stage is yung mature, stable stage. So one example of this is Coca-Cola, no? And Walmart, WMT. So ito yung mga stocks or yung mga corporation na very established, and then wala na rin masyadong earnings growth, wala na rin masyadong revenue growth. So medyo mabagal na talaga, mabagal na yung growth nila. So lastly, may mga corporation, may mga stocks na nagde-decline, no? Hindi na nila ma-scale yung earnings nila, hindi na nila ma-scale yung revenues nila, and natatabunan na sila ng other market players. Pero may mga times din naman na nagkakaroon ng turnaround, no? Nagkakaroon ng turnaround. So, yan yung tinatawag na rejuvenation, na na nalalampasan nila yung mga challenges, and nagkakaroon sila ng another revenue source, and earning source. Paminsan may mga stocks talagang nagde-decline na, no? So, yan yung corporate life cycle. So, medyo lang naman siya, something to know lang din, no? Para lang din at least aware tayo on what stocks or yung mga stocks na ginagalawan natin, nasaan na ba siya sa life cycle niya. So for example, right now I have three stocks na hinawakan. DHI, so matagal na tong company na to. It's a home building name or home builder name. So it's considered as a mature growth name, no? So matagal na siya sa industry, mature na siya. Pero there is still some steady growth, no? So next, State Street, another established name, no? So at least we have the idea kung ano yung kung nasaang life cycle na or nasaang life cycle na or corporate life cycle na yung hinahawakan nating stock. So how to take advantage, no? Ito naman yung punto, how to take advantage of micro level funda analysis. So ito yung trader's perspective, no, in relation to catalyst and long-term valuation. So keep in mind, no, when considering micro FA or micro level FA, in the short term, the market acts as a voting machine. So market demand and supply reacts to short-term news and catalyst. In the long term, the market acts as a weighing scale. So dito nagte-take effect yung long-term valuation, no? So long-term valuation na nagmamaterialize is what sustains a trend. So just like dun sa pinakita natin example, Nvidia, yung long-term valuation niya, yung nag-create or nagsaserve as a tailwind to sustain the trend, to sustain the trend. So short-term voting machine, long-term weighing scale. So ito yung mga types of short-term catalyst, no? So short-term catalyst is what usually starts or sparks momentum and causes imbalance between demand and supply. So this in turn produces significant market swing na kayang i-exploit or pwedeng ma-exploit ng mga traders. So example of this is may in-announce na new product ng isang company, may bagong kontrata, pwede rin may new business expansions, tipong may new branches, napag-expand sa ibang bansa, yung isang stock or yung isang company. Pangatlo, may analyst recommendation, upgrade or downgrade. That can be considered as a short-term market catalyst. Pang-apat, merger and acquisition. So, is a stock being acquired or may ina-acquire siya? Or is a stock being merged with another related stock? So, M&A, merger and acquisition. Panglima, earnings surprise. So, kunwari, upon earnings release, na-beat yung earnings expectation. So, that can serve as a short-term market catalyst. And lastly, regulatory approvals. Usually, makikita mo yan in effect yan sa mga biotech, sa mga medical devices, mga regulatory approval, FDA approval, etc. etc. So, that can be considered as short-term market catalyst. Long-term market catalyst naman, no? Yun nga, as I've said, long-term market catalyst is what really sustains market demand or market interest on the stock. So this in turn produces your more multi-bagger run-ups over time. Tumatagal yan ng year or even years. So these catalysts also sometimes act as a short-term catalyst. So we can categorize them or segregate them into 6 then, no? So number one, no, considered as a long-term market catalyst yung industry or market disruption. One example of this is kunwari Tesla. Nung nag-start siya in the electric vehicle space, considered as a market disruption yun. Another example, uh, kunwari Nvidia, no? So semiconductor name na very critical to AI development. So may market disruption, may industry disruption in terms of services, software services, anything na kayang i-automate. So considered as market disruption and nagtitrickle down siya to Nvidia, which is yung critical component nga ng AI. So that can be considered as a long-term market catalyst. Pangalawa, regulatory changes. So kunyari, one example of this is kunwari in 2016, Gina Lopez nagkaroon siya ng regulatory change with regards to mining companies. So it's considered as long-term market catalyst 'yun. Pangatlo, economic or demographic trend. So kunyari, one example of this is Macro Asia ng 2017. So demographic trend is yung mga millennials, tumataas yung spending capacity, lumalakas yung spending capability into travel, no? Into travel to experiences. So Macroasia is an airline company and isa siya sa nagbe-benefit in the travel and airline trend or airline space. So demographic tapos sector-based trickle down effect. So that's one example. Pang-apat, changes in management. Kunwari, nagkaroon ng critical changes in management, tipong nag-step down yung isang CEO na toxic, that can serve as a long-term market catalyst or long-term catalyst to the stock. So that's one example. Panglima, earnings growth. consider din yan as a long-term market catalyst. Just like yung pinakita nating example kay Nvidia. So, since 2023, Q1 2023, you have that significant earnings growth, stable earnings growth, revenue growth, considered na siya as long-term market catalyst. And lastly, established moat in industry. Ibig sabihin, untouchable siya. May established moat siya in an industry. Hindi siya kayang patawbin basta-basta lang ng competition. So, if may isang stock na established yung ano niya, yung moat niya in the industry. For example, Microsoft in software, Google in big data, may established moat na sila in the industry. So, considered as long-term market catalyst dun. So, we have some guiding questions, no? That we can use. So, number one, no? Syempre, we're traders. Sa mga gusto nating itanong dyan, does the short-term catalyst produce long-term value to the company? So, if yes, can be considered as bullish, kailangan lang natin ng further confirmation with price action. Pangalawa, will it affect the company's earnings and revenues in a positive way? So when looking at catalyst, always ask this. So yung catalyst ba, may effect ba siya in the earnings? Kunwari, it's a regulatory change. Is it a positive regulatory change na will boost earnings, will boost revenues? If yes, considered as bullish yun. You can use it as something to add conviction on a trade, on a technical setup na nag-emerge. Pangatlo, will it spark market interest once the catalyst is established? So, kunyari, there is a rumor for acquisition. Hindi pa nagagawa. Hindi pa nangyayari. Pero, once na makasa yung acquisition na yun, it may spark market interest. Kasi it's a strategic M&A or merger and acquisition play. So, if yes, you can consider it as bullish. You can consider it as bullish na pwede mong hanapan or kailangan mong confirman ng price action. So, another question that we can use is the catalyst speculative in nature or factual? Yung tipong rumor ba siya or nangyayari na? So, speculative ba siya or factual? So, if speculative, um, take it with a grain of salt. Wag kang mag-all in, wag ka masyadong aggressive on trading the stock. So, if factual naman, it can serve as something na kumbaga mas concrete siya, no? Kasi factual siya. Mas concrete yung catalyst, mas maganda. Pag speculative rumors lang din, mag-iingat ka. Another guiding question is that, is the catalyst a story-based catalyst or numbers-based catalyst? So if it's a story-based catalyst, kailangan back siya ng numbers. Although hindi naman kailangan agad-agad. So doon papasok yung question number 1, does a short-term catalyst produce long-term value to the company? So if yes, then you can consider it as bullish, no? If numbers-based catalyst naman, so mas concrete siya, factual siya. So pwede mo na siyang hanapan ng actionable setups. So lastly, does the story and numbers connect or make sense? So kailangan yan, no? Is the story connecting with the numbers, or is the story plausible, no? Or possible. Hindi pong hindi naman yung parang fairy tale story nga, ika nga, yung kanina. So, by using these guiding questions, you can assess if the current catalyst is a possible short-term or long-term catalyst, no? And you can adjust your expectations on the possible move that the market will make. So, assess mo muna if short-term or long-term, you can use these guiding questions. And this, if na-assess mo na maayos, this builds a narrative and concrete context na to your technical setups and overall approach. So since technical traders tayo, technical heavy, no? Technical first traders. Kumbaga, nakakatulong din 'tong mga guiding questions na yan. So let's do a case study, no? Just like I've discussed kanina yung Macro Asia na example, no? So It takes consider of the economic and the demographic trend, pati na rin yung regulatory catalyst, pati na rin yung growth story. So, this is my first 7-digit trade. So, this stock gave me my first M, and thankfully, ano siya, no, naging long term yung trend niya. Hindi naman long term tipong tumagal lang ng 1 year. So from 2 pesos, 1.5 pesos, nag-rally siya papuntang 19 pesos, 18 to 19 pesos. So 1,000% run up in 1 year due to harmony in story and numbers. So Macrasia, ano ba tong stock na to? So it engages in various businesses including aviation-related services, airport ground handling, maintenance, repair, and overhaul services, and property development. So, ang hindi nakikita ng mga tao diyan way back 2017 is yung catering business niya, yung airline catering business niya, which is doon majority nakuha ni Macroasia yung kita niya noong 2017. So, under the services sector, mainly yung theme niya is tourism and airlines. So, we can do a growth analysis by assessing key drivers, no? So, step by step natin siyang titignan. So, 'di ba, pinakauna nating titignan diyan, ano ba yung services na pino-provide ng company? So, 'yan, nakategorize na natin siya, airport ground handling up to property development. So, next is ano ba yung customers and clients niya? Mga major airlines, and actually consider din dito yung mga passengers, yung mga airline passengers, since meron silang catering business, no, or airline catering business. So next, ano ba yung mga drivers of growth in their customer base? So it's driver number one is tourism activity. So if tumaas yung tourism activity, then maganda siya for their revenues, for their earnings growth. Pangalawa, airline activity. Since they're handling maintenance, repair, overhaul systems uh, on airplanes, pag tumaas yung airline activity, tataas din yung earnings niya. So, actually, no, if tumaas yung dalawang yan, tataas yung revenue earnings, tataas din yung valuation ng stock na to. So, building up the story-based catalyst, pati na rin yung narrative. No? So, number one, so actually, Macroasia will benefit nga, di ba, from the following factors. Number one, increasing inbound and outbound tourism-based activity in the Philippines. So if mag-increase yung inbound, outbound tourism activity in the Philippines, tataas yung earnings, tataas yung revenues ni Macroasia. Pangalawa, tourism is heavily attributed to spending capability of major demographics and current social trends. So, 2017 up to 2020, millennials, yan yung major demographic. Sila din yung may mataas na spending capability. May dispensable income, ika nga. So, if nasa sweet spot in the major demographic yung customer base nila, then it may increase their earnings and revenues. Pangatlo, one key factor din dito is yung government tourism initiatives, no? Kunyari government really advocates tourism, no? Pati na rin yung mga expansionary policies directly benefiting the tourism and airline sector. So if meron yung tatlong yan, high probability na tataas yung growth ni Macroasia. So main thesis dito is that due to social demographic factors such as the social trend in millennials na nagta-travel, focusing on spending on experiences, on travel, kaysa sa material possessions, and malakas yung spending capability ng millennials, this will produce more tourism activities and revenues in the Philippines. So, nandun na tayo sa stories. Next, let's look at the numbers. So, consistency test na tayo in story via numbers. So, we're gonna look at tourism and demographic numbers. So, this was pulled in during 2016, 2017. So, worldwide demographics during 2016 was bottom heavy. Bottom heavy with majority of population in 29 years old below. So this in turn supports the idea nga na yung millennial demographic or the current majority and the data is showing us that current major demographic is spending on tourism, spending on traveling. This will have a positive effect on tourism sector in the Philippines. Hence giving us the possibility na tumaas yung earnings ng tinitignan nating stock, which is Macro Asia. So another chart na pwede nating tingnan is yung air transport, pati na rin yung passengers carried sa Philippines. No? So this is the chart by Civil Aviation Organization. So 2014 to 2018, breaking new all-time highs yung airline, pati air transports na dumadaan sa Philippines. No? So during the 2014 to 2017 period, the Philippine aviation industry experienced steady growth, no? Supported by increasing passenger traffic and improving air connectivity. So this growth may have positively impacted Max aviation related businesses, potentially contributing dun sa run-up in its stock price noong 2017, 2018. So ito yung main statistics na nagsusupport sa number na yan. So next, looking at Macro Asia's earnings and revenues. No? So during the 2017 tourism boom, Max earnings was positively affected and showed consistent growth and achieving all-time high revenues and earnings. So breaking new all-time highs in terms of revenues, in terms of earnings. No? So this was sourced using Simply Wall Street, a tool na meron kayo access. So, primary driver of Macro Asia's multi-bagger run is number one, hot theme and sector. Nasa magandang sector siya, di ba? Pangalawa, valuation gap. There's a valuation gap way back 2016, 2017. So, nung nag-increase yung earnings na, nag-increase yung revenue niya, naging reflective na with the numbers, yung sa story, nagkaroon ng valuation gap. So, due to Mac being undervalued, around 5.0 PE ratio lang siya, price to earnings ratio. Way back 2016, 2017. This prompted institutions to accumulate shares of the company, to value it based on the growth projections, no? So all-time high earnings gave confidence to investors that money from tourism sector is already trickling down to the company. So ano siya? Valuation gap, may earnings growth, all-time high earnings growth, revenue growth, prompting institutions to buy the stock. So ito yung steps, no, in connecting stories with the number. So it's a simple process to make sense of the growth potential and valuation of company na interesado ka. Pwede mo naman hindi gawin yan, pero it actually helps to do these things, no? Kunwari gusto mo ng isang special situation trade or you're looking at a stock na you really have to build that conviction to trade it. So bottom line is to look at facts if it has, number one, growth potential, if it's showing growth potential or undervalued yung stock. So step number one, develop a narrative for the business that you're estimating its future value or valuation. Step two, create a hypothesis based on your narrative. Para siyang scientific method. So create a hypothesis based on your narrative. Step three, convert the narrative and segregate its key drivers. Key drivers in revenue, pati na rin yung customer analysis. Saan niya kinukuha yung majority ng revenues niya. So step 4, create a consistency check on the key drivers and do a rough valuation growth estimate. Step 5, keep the feedback loop open and be open to suggestions to fine-tune your narrative. So yan yung steps, no, in connecting stories with the number. So it starts with the story, then as you move forward, as you move toward in building that narrative or to validate the narrative, kailangan mong gamitin yung mga numbers. So medyo rigorous process, but it actually helps, no, to create high conviction trades. So next, isa din to sa mga primary questions, no. Ano ba talaga yung gusto ng mga market participants? Ano ba talaga yung gusto ng mga market participants, ng mga institutions, ng mga retailers? So market participants are either looking for undervalued, yung mga cheap names, yung tipong nasa below 10 PE ratio, tapos may valuation gap or whatever. Kumbaga, mura. Or, ang gusto nila is yung mga names na may above average growth rate as a company in the future. So, may malaking growth projection. So, we can categorize them simply into two. Value investing or and then growth investing. So, actually, segregate mo siya yung mga investors into value investors or growth investors. So, to deeply explain it or to further explain value and growth, no? So, value investing focuses on identifying undervalued stocks in the market. So, yung primary goal nila is to find stocks na nagtitrade at a price below their intrinsic value. Kumbaga mura versus intrinsic value. So, intrinsic value is determined by analyzing the company's financials, analyzing the earnings trends, revenue trend, looking at the underlying assets na meron yung stock na yun, yung company na yun, pati na rin yung cash flow, pati na rin yung free cash flow. So, value investing really involves valuing or looking for cheap cheap stocks. No? So, yun nga yung keywords natin, cheap, undervalued, below intrinsic value. So, yung primary driver of demand in value plays basically is participants nga and market operators are willing to push prices higher on an undervalued and mature stock. Due to the fact it is below its intrinsic value and it has a high margin of safety relative to young companies. Kumbaga yun yung mga defensive na investors, no? Mga defensive na investors institutions gusto nila undervalued na stocks. So one great example ng isang value investor is Benjamin Graham, Warren Buffett. So sila yung mga taong gustong bumili ng mga undervalued na stocks, yung mga mature na stocks na nasa murang side. So sino bang ayaw ng mura, 'di ba? So the more we get older, the more we get defensive. So on the other hand, no, growth investing naman. So growth investing prioritizes investing in companies that are expected to experience above average growth rates in the future. So keywords dito is strong growth, somewhat disruptive, no? And may competitive edge. So one example of a growth stock is Nvidia right now, 'di ba? Kasi meron siyang growth story and growth story backed by numbers. So primary driver of demand and growth plays basically is willing yung mga market operators to push prices higher and pay a premium. Kasi they are forward looking to the growth potential of the company that they are looking at. So ayun, no, in general, you should be assessing what the market is generally pricing in, if it is a value play or a growth play. So, gano'n lang siya kasimple. Gano'n lang natin siya kasimple i-segregate. Value, growth. So, how do we determine if it is a growth or value stock? So, number one, pwede natin siyang i-determine using financial metrics, using financial ratios. So, kunyari based on PE ratio, EPS growth, PEG ratio, etc. etc. Pangalawa, corporate life cycle of a stock. So, kunyari, by analyzing a corporate life cycle, yung characteristic ng isang stock, you can determine it if it is a growth stock or a value stock. So, the more na mature yung isang stock, the more na mas matagal na siya sa industry, you can consider them as value stocks. If bago lang sila sa industry, they're in a disruptive industry, then you can consider them as growth stocks. And lastly, if it is a component of a growth or value ETF. So each ETF, no, kaya nga tayo meron tinatrack na S&P 500 market segments, no. Mga growth, small cap growth names, small cap value names, mid cap growth names, mid cap value names, S&P 500 growth and S&P 500 value names. So if yung stock na tinitignan mo is under this ETF, kunyari nasa small cap growth, then you can consider it as growth name. If under small cap value, then you can consider them as small cap value name. So, hindi mo na kailangan tignan yung value valuation, hindi mo na kailangan tignan yung mga metrics. Check mo lang via ETF, no? So, kumbaga, bawat ETF kasi na yan, meron silang tinitignan na measures ng market cap. Kaya nga segregated siya in terms of market cap, small cap, mid cap, large cap. Tapos, may other components din like uh, ano ba yung free cash flow niya, ano ba yung PE ratio niya. So, considered din yun. So, nakasegregate na siya, no? Based on the ETF. So, yan yung mga ano natin. Methods natin to determine if a stock we're looking at is a growth name or a value name. So, ito yung mga essential financial ratios and information, no, na makakatulong sa atin, no, to determine whether a stock is overvalued, expensive, or undervalued, cheap, and other considerations on special situations in trading. So, let's start with market cap. So, I think may idea na kayo what is market cap. Market capitalization is outstanding shares times the stock price or the closing price of a stock. So, market cap refers to the total value of all a company's shares of stock. So, market cap is how the market is currently pricing the value of a company based on its stock price. So, in this example, captured around May 2022, so market cap of Converge was at 209 billion pesos. So, kumbaga, binavalue ng market na ito yung binavalue ng market, no, based on market cap, worth 209 billion si Converge, no, in simple terms. So that's how you look at market cap. So maka-classify natin siya in terms of their sizes. Kunyari in US equities, nano caps is yung mga stocks na below $50 million. Micro cap if $50 million yung market cap niya to $300 million. Small cap if 300 million to 2 billion. Mid cap if 2 billion to 10 billion. Large cap if 10 to 200 billion. Mega cap if 200 billion and more. So, 5 categories actually. 6 categories to. So, sa US equities yan yung ano natin. Segregation natin in terms of market cap. Segregation, segmentation in terms of market cap. So, Philippines naman, considered as micro cap if below 2 billion pesos. Below 2 billion pesos. Small cap if 2 billion to 10 billion pesos. Mid cap if 10 to 20 billion pesos. Large cap if 20 to 200 billion and mega cap if 200 billion pesos or over 200 billion pesos. So, what's the point, no? Ano ba yung purpose ng market cap in trading? So, ano nga ba yung yung implication ng market cap sa stock price movement, no? So, unang-una, no? So, the larger the market cap, mas smooth yung price movement. Although, hindi naman laging ganun. Basically, the higher the market cap a stock is, mas mataas kasi yung liquidity. Mas mataas yung trading volume. At the same time, perceived din yan as more stable and less volatile. So, on the other hand naman, the smaller the market cap of stock is, mas mataas yung price fluctuation niya. Kasi lower liquidity and mas prone to uh, volatility. Mas prone din siya maging risky, no? Since considered as a small cap or a lower cap stock. So yan yung implication in terms of small cap, whether small cap or mega cap, no? So ayun din, another consideration of this is yung inclusion in investment funds and indices. So market cap determines inclusion in index funds, no, and stock market indices. So it impacts demand for shares and stock price. So for example, uh, sa isang index, kunwari dito sa S&P 500 growth ETF, SPYG. So, if hindi siya pasok sa market cap parameters, then hindi siya masasama sa ETF na yun. Hindi siya masasama sa funds na yun, sa index na yun. So, very important yan. And lastly, growth and expansion potential. So, smaller companies with lower market caps may have more growth potential, potentially leading to stock price appreciation. So, larger companies may face challenges in sustaining high growth rates. So, the smaller the market cap of a company is, mas mataas yung growth potential niya. So, the larger the market cap, mas lumilit yung chance niya to grow since considered as large cap na siya. So, yan yung mga implication. So, market cap can also be used as a valuation comparison tool or benchmark. So, we can use this dito sa main three telcos natin. So, this was captured around 2022, Feb 2022. So, dito, during this period, was considered as deeply undervalued compared to the two major telcos based on dito's current and unadjusted market cap. So, makikita natin market cap ni PLDT is 427 billion. Market cap of Globe is 326 billion. Dito, 68 billion. Pare-parehas lang naman silang telco, 'di ba? Although established yung dalawa, pero there is a market cap gap. May gap silang dalawa. Pero, nag-underperform yung dito. Hindi nag-rally, walang effect yung consideration na undervalued siya. So, the main driver of dito's price underperformance based on future outstanding shares adjustment. No? Ito yung i-discuss natin sa case study na to. So, actually, if consider mo yung shares adjustment, hindi siya deeply undervalued compared to TEL and Globe. If consider mo yung adjustment sa outstanding shares niya based on the share swap deal. So, as per this article around August 31, 2021, so dito CME gets SEC nod for share swap deal. So, sinasabi dito na magkakaroon ng kaibahan sa outstanding shares, magiging 40 billion shares siya. So, based on computation, so outstanding shares ni dito nung 05/18/2022 is 68 billion. Given na yung outstanding shares is around 14 billion at its current market price sa 4.86, giving us 68 billion. So if ko-consider mo na lang din yung future market cap ni dito after the share swap deal, 40 billion talaga yung outstanding shares niya. And then assuming the price is at 5 pesos, ang lalabas na market cap is 200 billion. So considering the adjustments in the outstanding shares, actually hindi siya undervalued. Halos at par with Globe and Tel lang siya in terms of market cap. So isa yan sa mga ways to gauge talaga yung true underperformance or undervalue-ness based on market cap. Pero if may mga ganitong klaseng developments like share swap deal, may changes in outstanding shares, then you need to reevaluate yung market cap valuation ng stock na yun. So in this case, yun yung nag-drive sa underperformance ni dito. So if you understand the simple metric and dynamics in market cap and valuation, it will already give you an idea on what your logical stance on the stock will be. So importante na kino-consider din natin yun. So that's metric number 1. Metric number 2 is considering public float, also known as free float. So public float or yung free float percentage is a metric in which how many shares are available to be traded to the public. So kumbaga, yan yung total percentage ng shares in circulation, no? So typically, growth companies often have a lower public float due to significant insider ownership. So we know that most growth companies are young companies. Nandun pa lang sila sa scaling stage. Nandun sila sa early to mid stage ng life cycle nila. So may significant insider ownership, may mga lockup periods yan after IPOs or strategic decisions to retain control. So if growth company yan, usually lower public float. So value company tend to have a higher public float as they are usually more mature with widely distributed shares among public investors. So basically yun nga, 'di ba? Public float is considered as gaano ba kadaming shares yung available to be traded to the public. So the more na mas mataas yung public float, mas mahirap siyang pagalawin kasi mas mataas yung supply. If mas mababa yung public float, mas madali siyang mas madali siyang pagalawin kasi onti lang yung shares na in circulation sa public. So, demand and supply lang siya. So, this is the formula for public float or free float, no, percentage. So, it's the shares float divided by the shares outstanding. So, let's look at further examples, no? Pero ito muna, dito muna tayo on understanding outstanding shares. So, ano ba yung outstanding shares? So, ito yung treasury shares plus floating shares. So, all shares available in circulation to the public or not. So, yung treasury shares, yan yung hindi available to the public. Yan yung hawak ng insiders. Yan yung mga hawak ng mga executive ng hawak siya ng company, basically. So, floating shares, yan yung hawak na, yan yung available na shares na pwedeng i-trade publicly. So, kumbaga yung shares na binibili natin sa brokerage natin, yan yung mga floating shares. So, yung floating shares is equal to outstanding shares multiplied by the public float percentage or free float percentage. So, ito yung quantity of shares only available to the public to be traded. So, that's floating shares. Para lang ma-identify natin, no? So, floating shares yun nga, shares traded publicly. Treasury shares yan yung hawak ng insiders, executives. Not in public circulation yung mga shares na yan. So, these shares are traded, bought or sold in large lots by insiders. Okay, so what is the purpose of float in trading? Bakit nga ba natin ito inaral? Basically, to understand yung niya, yung impact niya on price movement. Impact niya on price movement. So, high public or free float stocks are more liquid and stable, no? And mas maganda yung niya, yung depth of market, yung bid-ask niya, yung order flow kasi mas madaming participant. So, importante na kino-consider natin yung public float or free float percentage. So, we can categorize them into low float up to high float. So, if less than 25% yung float percentage, considered as low float stock yun. So, advantage nito, since lower supply siya, lower amount of shares in public circulation, mas madali mag-appreciate yung stock. So, the lower the supply, mas madaling pagalawin yung isang stock na yan. Cons nito, low supply means mas madaling i-manipulate yung presyo. Since onti lang yung available na shares na pwedeng i-trade. So, mga medium float stocks if 25 to 50% float percentage. So, may adequate public supply siya. So, may stable liquidity siya. No? Yun yung main advantage ng mga medium float stocks. Cons nito, it requires heavier participation for price to appreciate. So, that's medium float stocks. High float stocks if above 50% yung public float. So, higher public supply or high public supply, high public float equals high liquidity and fairer public valuation. Since madaming shares in circulation, mas may bigat yung market vote, no? Since yun talaga yung binavalue ng market, no? Cons nito, it requires heavier participation for price to appreciate. Same thing with medium float stocks. So, mas madaming shares in circulation, mas mahirap siyang pagalawin. So, how do we get free float percentage in US equities? So, you can go to Finviz, Finviz Elite or Finviz na basic. So, you can go to the chart information and makikita mo yung shares outstanding and shares float. So, ganun, no? So, shares outstanding and shares float. So, to compute your free float percentage is equal to shares float divided by shares outstanding multiplied by 100. So, divide mo lang yan, then multiply by 100. So, in this case, 67.33% yung free float percentage. Giving us the idea na high float tong stock na tinitignan natin, which is DT, Dynatrace Incorporated. So, another parameter na gusto kong i-discuss yung short float, no? So, short float. So, for example, makikita natin dito na 4.69% yung data na pinapakita. So 4.69% ng public float or ng free float is being shorted by the market. So bakit natin yan tinitake consider? So if mas mataas yung short float, so mas madaming short sellers. So if mas madaming short sellers, tapos pag umangat yung presyo ng isang stock, mas prone siya to short squeezes. No? So one consideration yan, no? Or one financial metric na pwede mo i-consider, hindi ko lang nailagay dito. So the higher the short float, the more prone it is for short squeezes. So metric number 3 is earnings per share. So EPS, yung ano niya, no? So EPS, commonly known as EPS. EPS is a portion of a company's profit allocated to each outstanding share of common stock. So EPS serves as an indicator of a company's profitability. So it measures earnings versus the share or outstanding shares. So ito yung pinakasimpleng formula. Total earnings divided by outstanding shares. So whether income na galing from operation or hindi galing sa operation, non-operating income or income. Kaya siya total earnings. So EPS is a portion of company's profit allocated nga no to a share of common stock, to the total outstanding shares of stock. So to compute your EPS, no, get your income divided by the shares outstanding. So that's your EPS. That's your EPS. So it's considered as a dollar value or a peso value. So yun yung ano, pinaka unit ng EPS. Dollar value or peso value. Earnings per share. Kumbaga parang for every shares outstanding, ito yung kinikita. So income per shares outstanding. So kaya siya nga siya tinawag na earnings per share. So EPS changes is used as a gauge for earnings, on earnings capacity and growth. So you can go to the indicators tab and then look for EPS and sales table. So makikita mo yung EPS trend niya, yung EPS na per quarter, pati na rin yung sales per quarter. So if nakikita mo na you have an increasing EPS, no? So for example, 4.67, 2.76, yada yada. So ano siya, it's a good sign na nag-increase ang earnings ng isang stock na yan. So in this case, kunwari, yung past 3 earnings ng DHI. So 2.82, 3.52, and 4.10. So you have increasing EPS for the past 3 quarters. So consider that's good yun. Pero isa din sa mga pinaka-importanting tignan natin yung sales. Yung sales. So if you have rising EPS pero decreasing revenue growth, medyo red flag yun for me. So mas may bearing talaga yung sales, yung revenue growth versus EPS. Kasi pwede mong i-manipulate yung EPS eh. Pwede mong ibahin yung outstanding shares, etc. etc. So yun yung ano, isa sa mga consideration with EPS and sales. So ito yung mga key questions when analyzing EPS and sales data. So number 1, first question is, yung quarterly EPS ba, umaangat siya? Is it increasing? If yes, considered good yon and healthy and may attract market participant. Next, is the current EPS better than the estimates and the quarter of the previous year? So for example, DHI, tignan natin yung June 2024. EPS is 4.10. So change is 5% versus the previous year's EPS no on for the quarter for Q2. So June 2024 is 4.10, June 2023 is 3.9. So meron kang EPS growth versus previous year. Tapos yung surprise, yung surprise na column is yung versus estimates. So if higher than estimates, then okay siya. So if yes, yun nga, then it may be bullish and may attract market participants. So lastly, is the company's sales growth increasing? Umangat ba yung sales growth niya? If yes, kahit yung past 3 quarters lang, no, tignan mo. So if umangat yung sales growth niya, then considered as a positive development yun. considered as positive development and may attract market participants. So yan lang naman yung mga key questions natin when looking at EPS and sales data. So on earnings releases, so if the market reacts nicely on EPS and revenue surprises on a stock, so this usually gives birth to high probability post-earnings announcement diff plays and power earnings gap plays. So you can review your swing playbooks, your momentum playbooks, yan yung PED plays and power earnings gap plays. So as we move toward the end of this this lesson, i-revisit natin yung mga PEG plays. So for example, SFM, no? Considered as power earnings gap yan. Nung Q1 2024 earnings release and yung Q2 earnings, tama ba? Yan, yung Feb 2024 earnings release and yung May 2024 earnings release. So, power earnings gap. After earnings release, so na-release post-market, kaya may moon. So, on next day, after earnings release, nung bandang Feb 2022, nag-react yung market nicely. Rally siya ng around 10%, 5%. Gapped higher, moved lower, and then ended with good momentum, bullish momentum. Afterward, nag-continue yung bullishness, considering it as a PEG play with follow-through. So, same dito, no? PEG play din to. Power earnings gap play. So, earnings beat, EPS beat, and then revenue beat. So, higher EPS versus estimates, higher revenue versus estimates. So, dito naman, May 2024 earnings release. So, post-market din na release. So, nagkaroon ng decline 2 days before earnings. And then afterwards, nung nagustuhan ng market yung EPS data, pati yung revenue data, nag-gap up siya. Afterward, moved higher. So that's the concept of PEG or power earnings gap. Maganda yung earnings mo, maganda yung EPS, maganda yung revenue, nag-gap up yung stock. Power earnings gap. So EPS and sales data alone can't determine value or growth or whether a stock is undervalued or expensive. So ito yung isa sa mga pangit hindi naman totally pangit pero hindi siya considered as something na magandang measure to determine if undervalued ba or overvalued na isang stock. So dito papasok yung metric number 4, yung price to earnings ratio, also known as PE ratio. So basically it's the price per share or yung current price versus the EPS or earnings per share. So basic use of PE ratio is to determine whether a stock is undervalued, cheap, or overvalued, expensive by the market based on its current price. So very dependent on current price siya and EPS. So how do we determine if a stock is cheap or expensive based on PE ratio? So PE below 15 considered as cheap, PE above 15 considered as expensive. So yun yung parang fine line between cheap and expensive, no? Pero pwede mo siyang i-treat as a spectrum. So you can also compare them versus the sector or industry PE ratio. So pwede mo siyang compare versus the industry group or sector PE. So you can go to Finviz Elite, go to the groups tab, tapos makikita mo yung sector PE ratio. So for example, basic materials, PE ratio niya is 22, energy is 11.65, considered as undervalued. So if considering forward PE, undervalued sectors are materials, energy, and financials, below 15 PE ratio. So, kunyari, ito, you're looking at UNH, a stock na under healthcare sector. So, if you're gonna look at the PE ratio and then forward PE ratio, you can simply compare it to the sector PE. So, in this case, United Health Group's PE ratio is 37.56. Nandito. Healthcare sector PE ratio is 39.99. Yan, 39.99. So, since UNH PE ratio is below the healthcare sector PE ratio, therefore, it can be considered as undervalued. So, pwedeng individual stock basis, pwedeng sector comparison basis. So how do you compute for PE ratio? Kunwari, hindi available tong table na yan. Just look at two variables or two parameters. Yung closing price ng stock, tapos yung EPS. Yung trailing EPS ratio. Or EPS pala, sorry. EPS. So that's the PE ratio. So in this case, Dynatrace closing price is 54.97 with an EPS of 0.373. So saan yung EPS? Nasaan yung EPS? Hold on, medyo hinanap ko lang. So eto yon. So 0.37 EPS trailing 12 months. Yan. EPS 0.37. So 0.373 giving us 147 PE. So considered as overvalued, above 15 PE ratio. So halos papasok dun sa PE ratio na pinapakita sa table na yan. So trailing 12 months EPS, tapos yung current price or closing price. So that's how you compute for PE ratio. So if hindi mo alam yung EPS, just go back to the previous slides and then compute your EPS ratio. Earnings per share, income divided by the outstanding shares of the company. So one key vulnerability of PE ratio as a metric to determine if a stock is undervalued or overvalued is hindi niya kino-consider yung earnings growth ng isang stock. So parang static siya, no? Parang lagging signal siya or lagging metric siya for us to consider. So a better way to determine, no, if a stock is undervalued is the PEG ratio, yung price to earnings to growth ratio. So formula niya is PE ratio divided by the annual EPS growth rate in percentage. So the PEG ratio is used to determine a stock's value while also factoring in the company's expected earnings growth. No? So much more complete yung metric na to compared to the standard PE ratio. So how do we determine if a stock is undervalued or overvalued based on PEG ratio? So undervalued if below 1, overvalued if above 1. So ganun mo lang siya kasimpleng titignan. Above 1, overvalued, below 1, undervalued. So pwede mo din siya compare to the sector, pero dito muna tayo sa individual stock. So considering Converge nung bandang May, so PEG ratio, let's compute for the PEG ratio. So Converge is around 28 pesos, 27.72. Yung isa at 28 pesos, 27.72 yung PE ratio niya during this period. Tapos yung annual EPS niya is 44.29. Yung trailing 12 months na EPS growth. So 44.29, dito lalabas yung PEG ratio mo. So 27.72 divided by the annual growth rate in percentage, giving you a 0.62 PEG ratio. So considered as undervalued yung Converge, no, in terms of the PEG ratio. So undervalued kasi nag-grow pa siya. Pero if titingnan mo yung PE ratio alone, 27.72, considered as overvalued na siya, 'di ba? So PEG ratio is much better. So to manually compute for the PEG ratio again, no? In this example, Delta Airlines, DAL. So get the PE ratio, go to this table, no? Go to the PE ratio. So nasaan yung PE ratio natin? Nandyan, dito sa area na yan. Sa the fifth column, fourth to fifth column. So 16.22, yung lumalabas sa PE ratio. Annual EPS growth in percentage is 36.11. So always consider the 5-year EPS growth, no? Always consider the 5-year EPS growth if more than 5 years na yung stock na tinitingnan mo. So 36.11 giving us the value of 0.45 PEG ratio. So consider this undervalued considering earnings growth. So rule of thumb ba, huwag niyo kakalimutan. Consider the 5-year EPS growth if you're looking at a stock na more than 5 years old na. So other financial information na pwedeng mag-serve as useful. Number one, looking at operating income, no? So, looking at operating income is actually useful, no? Pati na rin yung sales like what we've discussed kanina. So, basically, operating income is the amount of profit realized from a business's ongoing operation. So, operating income is gross income minus operating expense. So, actually, gross revenue minus operating expense, not gross income. Tama ba? Hindi, tama. Gross income, sorry. Gross income minus operating expenses. So, yun yung operating income. So, it is a measurement that shows how much a company's revenue will eventually become profit. So, another example is non-operating income. So, it's the portion of an organization's income that is derived from activities na hindi related sa core business operation. So, it can include dividend income, profit or losses from investments, as well as gains or losses incurred in foreign exchange and asset write-downs. So, kunyari, so for example, Jollibee. 'Di ba, food and beverage yung main business niya, 'di ba? Or restaurants. Tapos nagkaroon siya ng big spike in income. Pero yun pala, yung income is coming from a sale of their assets. Kunwari, lupa, kunwari, building. So, non-operating income siya. So, much better na tinitignan mo yung operating income versus the non-operating income. So, OI versus non-OI. So, operating income is a much better gauge if a company is sustainably profitable, as it comes from a potentially recurring revenue based from its operation. So, some financial data lang na tinitingnan natin when looking at the financial statement and their earnings releases. Paminsan kasi may mga earnings na medyo surprising, maganda siya, positive. Pero if magdi-deep dive ka, i-dig deeper mo yung components ng earnings na yun pala non-operating income. Kaya rin hindi maganda yung performance ng market or reaction ng market toward the stock. So, yun. That's why we also discussed OI and non-OI. So, next is the basic method of numbers-based valuation. So, this is a technique na usually ginagamit ko when there is a news or a catalyst na regarding potential earnings, no, or future earnings. So, ginagamit ko yung napkin valuation method. So, it's using the estimated income growth in market cap in order to reverse engineer the target price and expected market cap of a stock. So, parang ang main goal is getting the target price, no? Using the information of the information or new information with regards to the estimated income growth or the income potential. So, ito yung steps to value based on income growth estimate. So, step number 1, get your key data. Get your key data. So, yung income growth estimate based on project or new revenues, uh, new new revenues na key driver or key product or new driver or new revenue key driver or new product rather, sorry. So, pangalawa, income growth based on market share income estimate. So, paminsan may mga stocks na may mga company na nagde-declare or nagdi-disclose ng ito yung estimated naming income dito sa contract na to. Contract XYZ, whatever. So, you can use that information to get your target price. Somewhat get your target price. So, step B, get outstanding shares. Isa yun sa mga key data. Pangalawa, assume a 15 to 20 PE ratio as your proxy for market overvaluation. Step number 3, using PE and EPS formulas, reverse engineer the price target based on the overvalued PE ratio. So, ma-appreciate yan later on, no? So, hindi na, yan lang yung steps. But later on, may mga example tayo. Ayun, caveat lang, no? Napkin valuation is just a rough estimate or an over-optimistic valuation. So, ang goal niyan is to give you an idea of the possible market narrative pwede rin yung estimated target price based on the future valuation. So, how do we do this? No? So, let's give an example, GRR. GRR. So, Gorilla Tech Group or GRR released a disclosure ng around July 8, July 10. Tapos, sinabi nila dito na they bagged the contract worth $270 million over the 3 years. So, may estimated na silang kita based on the contract na around $270 million. So, one key data yan, di ba? So, step number 1, get the key data, yung income estimate. Next is get the outstanding shares. So, in this case, 71.36 yung outstanding shares ni GRR. So, current market cap as of July 7, 2023 is $306.25 million at $4.29. So, assuming na P ratio niya is 15, we can get the target price, no? We can get the target price. So, let's compute. So, the income from contract is 270 million. Computed EPS is 3.78. So, how do you get the 3.78? 270 million divided by the outstanding shares. So, earnings per share. So, how do we get the implied price or pang semi-target price, no? Based on the valuation or napkin valuation. So, EPS times PE ratio. So, EPS is 3.78. Yung PE ratio, assumed value lang siya, giving us 15. So, based on this information, PE ratio estimate of 15 gives you a target price of $56.70, no? With a market cap of 4.04 billion. So, what happened with GRR after their disclosure, no? So, around July 8, July 9. So, afterwards, nagrally yan. Nagrally yan 2 days ng around 234%. 234%. So, parang na-achieve niya yung na-achieve niya yung napkin valuation target which is $57. So, halos doon nag-top din yung market. So, parang pinakaisin lang, then finade. Pinakaisin lang and then finade. So, key tip lang, core tip. So, after you reverse engineer the price targets using napkin valuation, if a stock already reached it in a quick manner, in this case, the catalyst is already priced in. So, and expect a high probability sell-off. Just like what happened with GRR. So, you can take advantage of this by shorting the stock if applicable, if permitted ng broker mo. So, yun yung isa sa mga use cases, no, on numbers-based valuation. So, dito naman, news-based catalyst naman. So, applying news and earnings catalyst in trading equities. So, madaming cases tayong i-discuss. Case number 1 is sell on news. So, it's a technique na pag merong rumor, tapos gumagalaw na yung stock, after the news, tapos nag-sell off, alisan mo na. Or pwede rin, buy the rumor, sell the news nga, diba? So, stage 1, rumor-driven uptrend, merong potential insider activity dyan. So, after news release, doon nagkakaroon ng sell-off. So, after the news release, dump money retails become exit liquidity. So, syempre, if you're a retail investor, tapos wala kang idea, may news release, kunwari, tipong, Holcim, in-acquire nito, or in-acquire ni company XYZ, or something like, yun nga, just like yung kay dito, third telco siya, news release, after news release, pwedeng maging sell on news. So, one example of this is Holcim, no? So, during this period, around December 2018, nagkaroon ng rumor on Holcim being acquired by a foreign firm. So, ito yung rumors phase, no? Na-reach niya yung 5.69, 6 pesos area. After the rumor went out, nag-rally yung stock. Bandang January 28, 2019, doon nagkaroon ng formal disclosure on Holcim being for sale. So, ayan. Sabi dito, Lafarge Holcim is exploring options for its business in the Philippines, blah, blah, blah. Including a potential sale as the cement giant seeks to further reduce debt by selling non-core asset, yada, yada. So ano siya, acquisition rumor. So bandang March, nagkaroon ulit ng disclosure si Holcim, no, na sinasabi na si Ramon Ang daw is showing interest on acquiring Holcim. So you can pause this video, you can read the disclosure, but the bottom line is Ramon Ang's Eagle Cement, no, parang is rumored to acquire Holcim or to bid on Holcim, in buying Holcim. So ito na, bandang May 2019. Dito na nasabi na dito na na-declare na Ramon Ang San Miguel successfully acquires Holcim. Triggering a sell on news event. So after na-declare yung news na yun, wala, nag-sideways na lang si Holcim for many, many months. And even transition to a markdown phase. So that's the sell on news example for Holcim, for the PSE or Philippine market example. Ito crypto naman, sell on news. So recently lang to, bandang December, November 2023, nag-rally yung Bitcoin, di ba? Ito yung mga panahon na pina-price in yung spot Bitcoin ETF. Nung na-approve yung spot Bitcoin ETF, nung nag-start mag-trade yung spot Bitcoin ETF, doon nagkaroon ng sell on news. Short-term weakness, pero overall, since it's a fund inflow catalyst, nagkaroon din ng positive reaction yung market. So yung rally na to is capital inflows from BTC ETFs and pricing in of the Bitcoin halving. So isa din yan sa mga key catalyst for crypto or for Bitcoin, yung halving. So usually kasi every after halving, so naka-cut yung supply, 'di ba? So less supply equals easier to push prices higher. So after the Bitcoin halving, wala, naging sell on news event lang din siya. Karoon ng short-term weakness and then nag-sideways for many, many months. Till now. As of July 2024. So that's the case of buying on rumor, selling on news. So bottom line is, if meron kang nakikitang stock na nag-rally tapos nagkaroon ng news tapos wala ka pa nun, most likely late ka na. Huwag mo nang habulin. Most likely sell on news yun. Next is buy on news. So that's case number 2. So can segregate it into two stages. Stage 1 is the rumor phase. So despite having rumors, there are no significant price movements. Sideways lang, walang significant market rally. Stage 2 is yung news announcement, yung news drift phase. So after news and catalyst release, the market reacts strongly on the critical news. So that's case number 2. One example of this is dito nung 2018, bandang November 2018. So, nung bandang July to November 2018, there are rumors na si ISM, siya yung magiging third telco kasi tikit sila ni Digong or ni Piduts, di ba? So, afterward, nung bandang November, so nagkaroon na ng bidding, whatever, in-announce na si ISM or Miss Latel, currently dito, is the third telco. So, afterward, nagkaroon ng run-up of around 150% in just a few days. So, isa din to sa mga bagger trades ko. Itong dito. A special situation trade using a buy on news, using the buy on news concept. So, ito yung article. November 19, 2018. Government confirms Miss Latel as third telco. So, another example or another variation of case number 2 or yung buy on news is the power earnings gap play. So, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, power earnings gap play. Can be considered as buy on news events. So, these are catalyst-driven plays that is triggered by earning surprises. So, ito yung key tip natin on trading peg plays. So, basically, you don't buy the gap, you don't buy the first impulse move, you buy the coil or pullback. You wait for a coil or pullback after the PEG event. So, this is an example of a structure of a PEG, no? So, before earnings, usually wala yung ginagalaw. Paminsan nagde-decline pa. upon release of earnings, if merong earning surprise, tipong EPS beat, revenue beat, tapos nag-gap up yung stock for 1 day or 2 days, and then nag-create ng coil or pullback after the PEG candle, then you can trade the coil. You can trade the pullback. So in this case, kunyari, nagkaroon ng flag, can buy the breakout, set your stops on the nearest swing low or the logical technical stop. Then you can set your targets at the measured target from uh, the swing high to the swing low, from before earnings to after earnings. So that's how we set targets on Backplace. Yung 1618 extension or yung 2.0 fib extension from A to B. Swing low to swing high. Before earnings, swing low, then swing high after earnings. So one example is Nvidia's 16 to 20% run after the PEG play, no? Bandang Feb 2024. So we can see that before earnings, nagkaroon ng risk of sell-off before earnings. So typical naman yan for Mag 7 names. Upon earnings release, so EPS beat 12.34%, revenue beat by around 8%, making Nvidia to gap higher and then sustain its bullish momentum afterwards. So after a few days, nag-create siya ng 5-day coil after power earnings gap. Yan, itong coil na yan. So ang pinaka-tradable setup natin dyan is a buy on breakout of the coil. Then setting your targets at the 1618 measured target or the 2.0 measured target. So in this case, ito yung swing low before earnings, swing high after earnings, giving you $95 as your 1618 area. So ang nangyari dito after reaching the 1618 area, nagkaroon na ng sell-off. So that's Nvidia. No? So isa din yan sa mga na-trade natin recently ng Q1. So Oli, another example for power earnings gap, pero ang variation niya is an undercut and rally setup. So we can see that Oli, nung bandang June 12, 2024, nag-gap up after earnings. So EPS beat, earnings revenue beat din siya. Nag-gap up, moved higher. Then for the next days na nag-pull back siya, even breaking below the power earnings gap candle low. After breakdown, nag-reclaim siya. Undercut and reclaim. So ito yung lower time frame chart ni Oli at the 30-minute time frame. Break below the PEG candle low, then recover. So in this case, I bought the recovery after the PEG candle low breakdown and recover. So ang nangyari sa trade na to, it was more than 8-hour trade. More than 8-hour trade to. So isa to sa mga magandang trades ko recently. No? So after the PEG and undercut and reclaim play, it rallied by 17%. So ang nangyari dito, I bought at this area. I sold partial at the round number resistance area, which is the $100 area. So that's a century round number resistance. 1618 target, nung na-reach, I sold majority. I sold majority at this area, at 103, 104 area. So that's the PEG play, mainly driven by earnings. So case number 3 is buy on Bulok. So buy on Bulok is number 1, may negative news na nag-cause stock to crash. So catalyst driven siya, news driven, story driven na crash. Pangalawa, after the news, nangyari is nagkaroon ng follow through in the price decline. And another consideration in trading buy on Bulok plays is dapat super stable yung company. You don't buy companies na speculatives na bugbog. You only buy oversold stocks with a news catalyst if maganda yung company. One great example of this is MWC. So nag-decline yan after Duterte started power tripping water stocks. So Ayala's MWC and Manny Pangilinan sa MPI. So afterwards, nagkaroon ng significant sell-off. Then dito papasok yung bull div na setup na pinapakita ko last time, yung mga mean reversion setups natin. So, buy on bulk means after the news, super strong sell-off, capitulation level, then you can trade the mean reversion play. So, ayan. Yan yung buy on bulk na concept. So, kailangan may technical setup lang, no? Guys, kailangan lang may technical setup. You don't buy stocks na nagka-crash. You don't catch a falling knife. You wait for a setup or a constructive setup to trade uh, these types of news-driven plays. So overall, always follow price nga, pati na rin yung setups before incorporating the idea of a news catalyst or a rumor catalyst. So to end this video, no, may 6 core tips ako on using micro-level funda as a trader. So let's start with number 1. So when looking for true market leaders, identify stocks na may magandang technicals, maganda yung setup, dapat din na may magandang realistic fundamental growth story na backed by numbers. So if meron ganyan, take advantage of it. Huwag mong bibitawan if meron ka. You look for setups if may pinapresent na setup. Tip number 2, never trade stocks before earnings. So I never trade stocks before earnings. This is to discard gap risk. Yung tipong bukas, earnings, tapos bibili ako ngayon. Never ko ginawa yun. So, never trade stocks before earnings. Dahil very gappy yung US market. So, if you have an open position na at a gain, and there is an incoming earnings release, you can sell half or close the position. So, under your discretion na yun, if you want to give back profits, if ever mag-materialize yung isang gap down, or you can sell all, no, since you're already at a gain. So, close a position before earnings if the position is a losing position. So, importante yan. So, wag mo na hawakan. Wag mo na hawakan before earnings if at a loss naman yung stock na hawak mo. Pangatlong tip, when swing trading stocks after the earnings releases, identify if there is a strong bullish market reaction muna. And then wait for a tradable coil or pullback before entering. So, you don't trade on the earnings day. Although may mga setups naman dyan like opening range breakouts, mga momentum setups on lower time frame. Pero, if you're a conservative swing trader, you wait for a daily coil, a coil on the daily or pullback on the daily before entering. Next tip, regardless of earnings data or news catalyst, always look at the market reaction. That is the only thing that matters. So kahit na maganda yung earnings data mo, maganda yung news catalyst mo, yung tipong wow, big news, in-acquire nito yung XYZ, whatever. Maganda yung earnings data, EPS beat, revenue beat, pero if yung market reaction is stale, walang pa kayong market, pwedeng sinell down pa, then you don't touch it, no? You don't touch it. Yun naman yung nagma-matter, yung market reaction, hindi yung earnings release or yung news catalyst. Panglima, environment and market reaction matters. If a stock shows significant developments in their fundamentals, but if the market does not react nicely to it, then automatically na pass yun. Hard pass yung mga stocks na ganun. So, I hope na clear naman yun, yung ganong klaseng concept, no? So, sabi nga ni Stan Druckenmiller sa isang conference, sabi niya dito, people always forget that 50% of a stock's move is the overall market. Kumbaga, majority na nag-influence sa galaw ng isang stock is yung overall market environment. 30% is the industry group, nasa magandang sector ba siya? And then yung 20% is the extra alpha from stock picking, no? And actually stock picking is full of macro bets and micro bets even. So for example, there is a trader buying an airline stock. So if you're buying an airline stock, hindi lang siya airline eh. May mga underlying components dyan, pati yung mga consideration like maapektuhan yung yung airlines if tumaas yung oil prices, pwede maapektuhan yung airlines if there is a regulatory event or whatever. So basically, it's an embedded macro call on oil and an embedded macro call on tourism as well. So isa yan sa mga consideration natin. 50% environment, 30% industry group, 20% yung underlying micro ng stock na yun. So always track key indices. The last tip na gusto kong ibigay sa inyo is always track key indices, whether growth is outperforming value and what market cap segments are outperforming. So this gives you the idea what areas in the market to focus on to look for tradable setups. So let's simulate key tip number 6, no? So 'di ba, if you're gonna watch yung mga market briefing sessions natin. So I always start with looking at the SPY, yung market cap weighted na S&P 500 natin. So considering mega caps yan, since market cap weighted siya. So mega cap heavy yung S&P 500 pati na rin yung Qs since market cap weighted siya. Next is mid caps. Next is small caps. Tapos ni-determine ko if ano yung ginagalaw ng mga index na yan. So right now we can see that MDY is outperforming SPY. So pwede mong gawin is you can put up the formula or relative strength formula ng MDY versus the SPY. So if umangat yung MDY versus the SPY na chart, ibig sabihin MDY or mid caps is outperforming mega caps. So logically, if ganyan, saan ka maghahanap ng momentum setups? Siyempre, hindi sa mega caps, 'di ba? Sa mid caps ka maghahanap ng setups. So isa 'yan sa mga methods. Next is looking at growth ETFs and value ETF na ratio. So right now, SPY-G, SPY-V ratio is telling us that value is outperforming growth names in the large cap segment. Kaya rin natin tinatrack yan, yung mga S&P 500 market segments natin para at least meron tayong idea if saan ba tayo talaga dapat mag-focus? Sa small caps ba? Mid caps ba? Large caps ba? So if ever ma-determine natin small cap yung gusto natin, ano ba? Small cap growth names ba? Small cap value? Mid cap growth? Mid cap value? Etc. etc. So at least meron kang guiding light, no? Meron kang guiding light, may compass ka kung saan ka maghahanap ng setups. So very important tong key tip number 6. Kasi this is a make or break on stock picking, on looking for setups and yung probability for a setup to work. So always practice looking at key indices, looking at relative strength charts of significant segments like growth and value segments and market cap segments. So that ends our lesson for micro level funda. So I hope na may natutunan kayo and I hope na maput into action nyo lahat ng lessons na binigay natin dito. So if you have any questions, you can DM me. If you need to be coached with regards to earnings related plays, you can DM me as well. We can discuss your ideas, your chart studies, yung mga deep dives ninyo on these types of plays. I hope na ma-apply nyo to and may sa puso ninyo and mag-serve as additional layer of conviction for you to take trades na news-driven, catalyst-driven, and pwede ring numbers-driven na plays or trades. So yun, God bless and goodbye. See you on the next video.